Hey guys, welcome to Community Builders Summit. My name is Mike from ISCL, and this is my promise to you. New insights, new methods, and an interesting opportunity about what we're doing that I really want to share and connect it to the topic of this discussion today. Today, I promise you to talk about community as a business development tool. But to understand business development and the connection to community, we have to start with what does a business professional do? This was actually an enigma for many, many years. If you would ask many people until 2015, it was very debatable. Still used to say that a business development person does everything that nobody else does at the moment. But in 2016, Harvard Business Review actually released a very clear definition of the position of business development and how it should help the organizations. And it stated three pillars that the business development is built on. First, strategy. Second, relationships. And third, sales. And if you think about it, it's really important. First of all, strategy because it's long cycles and very interesting or innovative ideas. Second, relationships because that's how it's built on. And sales, which is the impact you want to see in the end. When you think about the pillars of community, there's many ways to define it, but one of my favorite ones is the one of the community canvas: identity, experience, and organization. And if you think about it and you compare it to what we thought and talked about in business development, it's very similar. The identity of the community is actually the strategy of the community. It's actually your path, your way, your chosen direction that really leads you and is your guideline all the way through. Experience is all about building relationships. And that's very similar again. An organization is what the organization needs: the finance, the structure. By the way, the guys in Canvas call it structure anyway, but I call it everything that's important for the organization and shows the bottom line for the organization. What if we would take business development and connect it to the world of community? Think about the biggest problem that we community professionals have. We don't fit anywhere. Whenever we think today about community, most of the people think about marketing. But many people that know community know that the best communities are actually working in product, or sometimes as part of the operations or support, and in many other departments. But nobody ever defined community, that never that I heard, as business development. And business development has a very similar trait that it can be almost in everywhere or help any part of the organization. When we think about it, community as a business development tool is actually business development on steroids. When you do business development and you build relationships, usually it's one-on-ones. You go and you network and you go to events and you meet people. But here suddenly you have a whole group or a whole space where people hear you all the time. And when you talk to people, you have a much louder voice and you don't just reach them in a marketing way, but in part of your building your relationship and sustaining your relationships with them. Second, when you connect with people, and if you think about it as an organization, you'll connect the connection not to the person himself, not to the business development professional himself only, but also a connection to the idea, to the need, to the problem that the community is solving. And that way, you're keeping your connections and relationships also as part of the organization. And third, sometimes you can be much more impactful. When we build communities, we build much deeper trust. We can do more things. We can help more people at once and bring more help more often, more close, more focused, more related, and in what our customers or partners need. So, how does BizDev and community connect? How do we, create a method that works together between and does the connection between business development and community? So, usually when we do a community strategy, we start with how to build community. I want to dare and defy that question. I want to dare and say, don't start with how do we build community. I want to start with the question, should we build a community? Because building a community isn't the only thing we can do. But say you decide that you want to build. So you have to ask yourself a few questions. First of all, is your organization ready to invest in a community? But investing in a community isn't just about money. It's asking yourself 5 questions. Do we have the buy-in? Do we have all the people in the organization that are relevant for us, that really believe in the idea, or at least enough people that we can really make it work? Because we need to go for the long run. Community isn't built in a day. Second, when we think about it, do we have the culture for community? Do we have a giving organization? Do we have an organization that wants to help others? Building community is always about when you start and give, when you have this trust and you build trust only by creating trust of your own, about setting an example. If you're not a communal organization, it will be very hard for you to build a community. Do we have the attention? Do we have the attention, not only the buy-in that they agree to join and build a community, do we have their attention when we'll need it? And again, of course, do we have the resources? Do we have the budget and the ability to pay or afford even the basic needs of retaining a community manager or a community team and investing in everything we need for the long run, at least for a few months forward until we see something happening? And of course, do we have the champions? Do we have the ability to find those people? Because the community can't be built alone. We have to have those first followers or people that in the organization and around the organization, if it's an external community, that will help it go and move forward. Now, if we ask these 5 questions and we have good enough answers, we can move forward. And we can start building your community. The method that we at ISCL build, we understood that we have to break it down to quick wins and then slowly prolong the process. We can't take the community management building, the community building as one huge process. That's a very long thing that you have to come to your managers and say, listen, talk to me in 9 months and I'll have a community. Talk to me in 6 months and I'll have something to show you. Because we don't want to come in the short term. And then we understood we have to build it into 4 stages. 3 main ones that we really see if we have a community or don't. First, build a strategy. Build a concept that after we have that concept, we can really have a better understanding of these 5 questions. If you have a soft understanding around these 5 questions, then after the strategy, you can have a better understanding, because many times after you create this quick concept and strategy, the people in the organization say, okay, guys, this is too much. This is not something we can invest in. You know what? Let's tweak it a bit and then change it. And then the strategy will be something we can go for the long term. Then the second part, and that's why the strategy part needs to be very short, is starting the soft launch. The soft launch is working and building those relationships. Exactly like when we talked about having strategy and business development and then building relationships. But it's more than building a relationship that's one-on-one with a lot of people. It's building the DNA. We call it building a core. We build a core with a small group of people and start building the DNA. Alongwise, we build a group, a larger group, and larger space around that core, or at least in a space that they're not aware of that we have a core and we're investing in a core and we want to build the community and grow. And after that period of creating the DNA and having this place like a startup to pivot and understand what's the thing that will work best in the community, start the scaling up stage and growth of the community. Once we grew and really invested in boosting up the community and creating that stage where it's really valuable for the organization, then all we need to make sure we don't F it up. Okay? Cultivation and management and crisis management. The difference, by the way, and when you think about the last part, is when we talk about the value of community, it's not very much defined like business development that usually has a very clear bottom line of sales. We talk about something that's very broad and very hard to define, because it has a lot of values. And when people build a community, usually the managers come and say, yes, we want to have great brand awareness, we want people to know about us, we want people to buy more, we want brand ambassadors, we want so many things. But the thing you have to do and remember when you build a strategy is use a model of understanding what's the biggest impact. One of my favorite models is David Spink's model, the SPACE model, which is an abbreviation for success, or support. It started as support and success in the end. It's about product, maybe a community that the main impact is about the product, the feedback, the innovation. Is it a community of evangelists, of ambassadors, of acquisition of new people to join the company and be the top fans of the organization? Is it about content? Is it about creating engagement to really create the people to connect the community to the brand all the time? But it doesn't matter what you decide, if this model or another, because it doesn't fit for every organization. You have to understand what's your impact and what's the value creation, the main thing you want to measure. So now that we have community building into business development and we know how to build a community like we do business development, but on steroids and creates much more value, what happens if we don't have the five pillars of understanding with the organizations to build? We believe that you need to start having another strategy called CR. This is something we started doing in the last 2 years when I understood that many organizations are not relevant, and I don't want to take customers that are not relevant for me and won't succeed. As an organization that's growing, the worst thing for me is having a client that wants me to build them a community and I fail, because the fail echoes much louder than the success. And what we understood, and also it's valuable for me as a community manager with a lot of friends that are community managers, why don't we do community relations? Why don't we invest in existing communities? Why don't we take those organizations that maybe don't have the full resource to build their own community? They don't have the time to wait to build a full community. Maybe they are not sure they have the right culture yet. Maybe they don't understand communities good enough. Why don't we invest in creating community relations? The way we do it is we seek new communities, we build initial relationships, and then we start engaging in the communities and vice versa. And as we go, we find new communities, we build new relationships and new engagements, and only keep and maintain the good relationships. What happens is, if this is successful, and usually it is, we find either something that's missing in the world of community and something that we can build, and then we go back to building a community, but we have a much stronger buy-in and understanding in the organization. And anyway, we have value created for the organization. If it's brand awareness, if it's partnerships, if it's content created with the other community that they needed the content to create engagement and we wanted the visibility. So there's many things that the CR can help, and that's what I believe is the best thing, because there's so many people that do community out of passion, and brands, instead of just building more communities, sometimes can connect to existing communities and invest in them and work with them and collaborate with them to create more value for others. And again, maybe this still needs a lot of work in setting up, in building relationships, and again, it takes time. If you're not sure this is the thing for you yet, the next thing you need to think is just doing a workshop, doing a sprint, a one-day thing of talking about the value of community, talking about either seeking and just starting the CR process, just doing the setup, maybe doing a workshop about taking, okay, we have already an existing community and how do we increase engagement? Or just do the oversight of, okay, let's do the strategy in a sprinty way, just to understand very high level, if we would bring a community, how we would build it. So I hope I helped you with your methods, and I hope I helped you understand better the insights about that we had in the last 5 years since we started working. But the opportunity I want to share to you is connected to my story and how I grew into the world of community. So my career actually started in 2002, but the most memorable organization I worked in the beginning was in Redbull. And Redbull was an organization that understood community before the word community was very spread. Because what they did, they created events where the people that love the brand or want to participate are the people building the event. If you remember Flugtag or Softbox, events that the people come, create a car, a flying something, and jump into a river together, and they create this whole experience of creating together and being a real part of the event. At KPMG, totally gray organization, I actually did a project about how to build an ecosystem, and we learned how to cultivate and build ecosystems for a nonprofit, building communities in peripheral areas. I fell in love with that. And then connected to Our Movement, the organization we did this project for, and with them, they hired me to build the ecosystem for business development or economic development for the whole regions we worked at. One of the companies we brought there into the middle of the desert was Wework. And there, for the first time in my life, I was called a community manager. Something that I felt that I always did, connecting other people, making some kind of platform, making it out loud, enabling others to help each other. Suddenly, that was my formal position, and I fell in love with it. One of the organizations that was at Wework hired me as their director of business development, because it was always my DNA, connecting people, creating business and creating bottom lines and creating value for an organization. And I told them, listen, I want to be director of business development and community. They said, okay, you can add whatever you want, but what does it mean? And I explained to them, and they actually loved the idea. But very shortly afterwards, I went to an event called Midburn. You probably know the US version, which is Burning Man. Burning Man that started in 1986, about 20 years later, started to spread around the world and open regional events. The Israeli one is about the third biggest one in the world. Was in this event that you see in the picture, about 12,000 people attending. And I remember being part of building the event and volunteering 5-6 months before the event started. And working so hard to get a ticket and be part of this. And then when we saw it, I couldn't believe people paid money to invest their time to build a city that's going to be ruined after a week. And then I understood that all my career is nothing, and what I really want to do is use and utilize this power that's so full of passion and connect to what I learned in Wework, which is do what you love, and then you'll be very happy and be happy to do things even if they get ruined for a week later, because the communal effect is much stronger than everything else. I went to the US to study more about communities. In 2017, I flew to CMX Summit and I went to Burning Man to learn and feel the larger experience and was really impacted from it. When I came back to Israel, I was offered to create a summit for ecosystem leaders and community leaders in the tech innovation world, because that's the ecosystem I was working in the last 3-4 years before that. We had a huge event, but from 54 talks, almost nobody could define what does community mean. And that's when I understood that I have to do it my mission and open a company that will really help as management consulting to help organizations understand the value of community, what is community, and build it for them. So we opened ISCL, which is International Startup Community Leaders. And I understood that communities are very much like startups. You don't know how you'll start, and you'll pivot along the way about 3, 4, 5 times, even 7. Okay? But the idea that startups and communities solve a problem. But I didn't want to do it alone, and I didn't want to grow organically. And in the last few years, I found a few methods. One is Inspiral, about building an organization that cultivates people in different circles around you, like a community, but they're part of the growth of the organization. I learned about teal organizations, which is from moving from packs, which you have one alpha male, or not male, alpha, doesn't matter, one alpha leading the pack and everybody listening to it, to teal organizations, which what we call trust-based organizations, that everybody can do what he likes, like in the camps in the Burning Man, that everybody builds his own theme and altogether creates a great cultivation of people moving and growing and moving their passion. But together we help and collaborate and create this huge community that's very valuable for an organization or for us as individuals and a group. So remember that Burning Man? What we're starting now is Community Pros. And Community Pros is an idea that we have to take everything that's in the world of community and put it under one roof. We took all the things that we did in the last 4 or 5 years and created departments that are really relevant. But many departments have professions that go cross-pollination between the organizations. And every topic usually has a very different target audience, which is very hard because we like to help groups monetize and understand how to make value. And when we do CR, we need to connect in communities, and then anyway, we help them monetize. But the most important thing, we want to help build communities and help organizations build communities. Long story short, it's a huge mission, and we have to have a place where everybody can talk. So we opened a LinkedIn group called Community Managers and Social Media powered by Community Pros. We opened a vision, and it's part of the vision of Community Pros, a community toolbox. We started to interview people about all the tools in the world of community. We created a lot of events and meetups and summits. We already had the ISCL summit, 3 summits, international summits from all over the world. And we do research for organizations, and every time we research, we have new insights and we teach them for workshops in different organizations. And we're building groups like the YCP in Israel that helps young community professionals learn from each other for free, but then of course grow together and empower and find jobs and everything they need to grow in their professional life as community managers and community pros. So that was me. I hope it was interesting for you guys. Thank you so much. If you're interested in being part of our vision. If you're interested about learning about becoming a community pro, doing business development, or anything else like community-based marketing, which is kind of the CR method we're talking about. If you want to be part of something bigger, if you want to work with a tribe, with a group together that will help you reach your full potential as a community manager or in your passion world, please contact us and I would love to talk to you and see how we can work together. Thank you so much. Thank you, Community Builders Summit, for this amazing event and letting me giving this talk. See you tomorrow.